8 ancient ambushes that still teach military lessons. As we all know, warfare has changed dramatically over the past 100 years, but the tactics haven't changed much at all. Even today, soldiers still have to learn how to defend against ambushes. And the best way to learn that is from history. Today we will look at 3 ancient ambushes that are still used today, and the lessons they teach us. The first ambush comes from the Battle of Cannae. Cannae was a battle fought in 1596 between the forces of the Habsburg and Ottoman Turks. The battle took place in Hungary, which at the time was under Habsburg rule. The Ottoman army was much larger than the Habsburg force, which made up for it by having better generals and better positioning. When the Ottoman Turks entered Hungary, they slaughtered many villages along the way. This caused the local lords to flee to the city of Cannae, where they hoped to find safety. Unfortunately for them, the Ottoman Turks had already taken the city before they got there. So the lords were forced to retreat into the hills. Here the lords made camp, thinking they would be safe from the Ottoman Turks. They thought this because the terrain was impassable for cavalry. Huge. The Ottomans were indeed unable to get their cavalry through the area, but they had plenty of infantry. Under the command of Pasha Sinan, the Ottoman infantry started moving through the hills towards the lords' camp. As the Ottomans got closer, the lords became more and more worried. So they decided to move out of camp and try to fight their way out. They moved 2 miles down the road and set up another camp. The next morning, they sent out a scouting party to see if the Ottoman Turks had followed them. What they didn't know was that they had been followed the entire way. Pasha had chosen his route carefully and stuck to the hills. He had also taken great care not to make any noise so that his men would not be detected. When the scouting party returned, they said that they hadn't seen any signs of the Ottoman Turks. So the lords decided to move out again. They only moved 2 miles, setting up camp near a small stream. This time, they sent out a larger scouting party, but still no sign of the Ottoman Turks was found. At this point, the lords had become cocky and believed that they had shaken off the Ottoman. We began sending parties out of the camp to gather supplies from the surrounding area. It was then that they were attacked. The Ottoman Turks attacked these supply-gathering parties and fought fiercely to push the lords back into their camp. The lords were barely able to hold off the Ottoman Turks and retreated back to the safety of their camp, now realizing that they were in danger. The lords sent out a large force to scout ahead. They wanted to find out if the Ottomans were just trying to harass them, or if they were planning something more. Unfortunately for them, it was too late. The Ottoman Turks had set up an ambush in the hills ahead, and were just waiting for the lords to come to them. When the lords' force came into view, the Ottoman Turks opened fire with their cannons. The cannons fired grape shot, which tore through the ranks of the lord's soldiers. After the cannons had done their work, the Ottoman Turks charged down the hill and cut the remaining soldiers to pieces. Over 2,000 soldiers were killed in the ambush, while only 300 survived. Why does this ambush matter today? There are 2 main reasons. First, it shows the importance of reconnaissance. The lords kept thinking that they were safe because they could see any signs of the Ottoman Turks. but the Ottomans had been following them the whole time. Second, it shows the importance of not being cocky. The lords became cocky after they had managed to shake off the Ottoman Turks, and this led to their downfall. The second ambush comes from the American Civil War in 1864. General William T. Sherman was marching through Georgia on his famous March to the Sea. On December, he stopped for the night near the town of Sacramento. Sherman's army was exhausted and hungry, so he allowed his men to forage for food in the town. The townspeople had already fled when they heard Sherman's army was coming, so the soldiers had no trouble finding food. Unfortunately, the soldiers didn't notice the Confederate cavalry that had been hiding in the town. The Confederates had laid low until Sherman's soldiers left. Then they rode out of town and set up an ambush. Sherman's soldiers were in no shape to fight, so the Confederates easily won the battle. Out of the 600 Union soldiers who had been foraging, 247 were killed or wounded, while only 22 Confederates were injured. Why does this ambush matter today? It shows the importance of not letting your guard down. Sherman's soldiers had been marching for weeks, and they were exhausted and hungry. This made them vulnerable to the Confederate ambush. It also shows the importance of being prepared at all times. The soldiers had been given orders not to go into town, but they did so anyway. If they had followed orders, they would have been safe. But the last ambush comes from World War II. During the Battle of the Bulge, the Allies were fighting hard to push back the Germans. On December 22nd, 1944, a group of German soldiers were retreating through the forest when they came across a small village. The village was deserted, which was odd since the Germans had taken great care to evacuate the area. The soldiers decided to search the village anyway, and this proved to be a mistake. The village was full of land mines, and the soldiers soon discovered this when one of them stepped on one and blew himself up. The other soldiers tried to flee, but they had walked right into a German trap. The entire area had been booby-trapped with landmines, and the soldiers could not escape. One by one, the soldiers stepped on landmines and were blown up. Only one soldier survived the ambush, but he was badly wounded and died soon after. Why does this ambush matter today? It shows the importance of being aware of your surroundings. The soldiers should have known that the village was booby-trapped, but they didn't. It also shows the importance of following orders. The soldiers had been told to evacuate the area, but they didn't. Instead, they went back to see if anything had been left behind. Finally, it shows the importance of having a buddy system. The soldiers were not with their units, so they were easy prey for the Germans. If they had been with their units, they may have stood a chance. And that's all for this episode. Thanks for watching. And if you want to see more episodes like this, then stay tuned.